If you ever thought, should I start a booktube channel, but I don't have enough equipment? Just a little FYI, this room is bare, except for my phone being propped up on a cocktail shaker and this bookshelf setup. As you know, I'm slowly moving and I'm really sorry for the echo in here. There's really nothing I can do about it. I'm in the middle of a move and trying to bring content out to you, so apologies for this really plain setup. This is literally my life right now. This is the trolley of joy for me, which has all the books I have which are not packed. These are all the books I have left with me until the 15th of January, so they have to last me a few weeks, which they will, but it's definitely odd seeing a blank room. Literally, it's just 4 walls of white. I'll try to put an overlay in for you as I've been chatting. But the reason you clicked on this video isn't to hear me whinging about my current living situation. It's because you want to know what my top 10, worst 10, I still haven't figured out the wording yet, books of 2021 were. Now, let me tell you, 2021 so far, massive reading wrap up coming soon, has been a really good reading year. But within that, there's been some books which have been really disappointing for me, books which I just really overhyped or thought were going to be really good, and they just fell completely flat. So I just want to quickly disclaim, I'm never coming at the authors, and I'm super happy if you liked the books that are on this list. Like, my goal in life is to encourage people to read, and if you liked a book which I didn't, then I'm genuinely happy for you, because it means you had a good reading experience. But I think it's also important to note that for there to be good experiences, there needs to be relative bad experiences. So without further ado, let's talk about my bad experiences. Look like an actual drowned rat. My deepest apologies, guys. I've just been out weeding and moving, and I'm just in a massive oversized t-shirt. So thank you for bearing with me during this tumultuous time in my life. But you know, the show must go on, so here we are. Let's start with what I think has been the most disappointing book for me this year. And that is The Kingdom of the Wicked. This is a book that I think the problem in it lies in how overhyped it was and what it promised me, and therefore didn't deliver. So let me start with it. It's got 2 sisters, they're both witches, one of them dies. It's not a spoiler, it is in the blurb. And then the remaining sister is like on a vengeance quest. And the thing is, there lives in this witch world the devil, the greatest sin, and then his followers, his subordinates, which are the other 7 sins. So you've got greed, lust, envy, and wrath. Wrath is the main one that happens in this novel. And the thing is, Wrath and our main female character, what was her name, sorry? Amelia. They are meant to have this relationship. To quote the blurb, this novel includes an intoxicating romance. There was nothing intoxicating about it whatsoever. It was the most mundane, boring, extrapolated romance for me. I was expecting proper enemies to lovers, but instead what I saw were 2 people, Wrath and Amelia, attracted to each other because they're both attractive people, as happens in nature. You know, that's how we're here. Our parents saw something in each other and we arrived. Yay. What? Okay, this has been a random tangent, but that's been the biggest disappointment for me with this book. And then I also saw it all over Instagram, and I know lots of people have liked this book, and like I said in the disclaimer, I'm so happy for those people. But for me, I wanted something even darker. I wanted something even spicier. I just felt like there was this big ball of hype and energy and promise, and then the promise just fell flat. So it didn't do it for me, unfortunately. The next one here is All Your Twisted Secrets by Diana Urban. This is a YA thriller mystery situation where all of our main characters are locked in a room and they have to kill one of them because there's like a bomb and a needle and a syringe situation. They have to kill one of them in order for the rest of them to get out alive, and it's basically a whodunit situation. Now, I read this, I buddy read this with a friend over on Instagram, and I think that honestly is what kept me going, otherwise I would have DNF'd this book. As you can tell from the blurb, it sounds really intense, it sounds really interesting, but what ends up happening is there's this split perspective woven throughout the novel, right? Like there's the time when they're in the room, Then there's the time when they're out of the room and it's flashbacks to all of this drama that's unfolding. Now here's the thing. The drama that was talked about in the novel, I don't think was worth the situation that they were all put in, right? Because all the characters were chosen to be in that room of death, shall we call it, because of the drama they were involved in at high school. What they were involved in at high school honestly just seemed like classic high school shenanigans. Not saying there's drug abuse in here, not saying drug abuse is shenanigans. I'm just saying that the other reasons, like there's basically a competition between people academically, like the two nerds. Nerd is a good term. I embrace the term nerd. The way that the two nerds fight it out, and so they're in there because like they're constantly hostile towards each other, and so that felt unbelievable to me. And then it was buddied up with the fact that the dual perspective meant that there was no tension building up for me. Sure, we see the clock on the bomb counting down, but because I didn't care about the characters, because it wasn't being believable to me, I just didn't think that it was exciting. So this book's main problem for me is that the split perspective intersected the tension to mean it all dissipated. Am I trying to use big words incorrectly? Perhaps. But it just was uncredible. Now I'm just making up words. It wasn't reliable. I didn't like it. It was not for me. I rated it pretty harshly. I think I gave it only 1 star. Only 1 star. Okay, sorry by the way, I've got my notes down here. Trying to keep this concise because I'm so prone to rambling. The next book I have on here is The Four Dead Queens. Like I say, all my books are packed away / sold / I borrowed them from the library. So we're dealing with the pictures, which by the way, this is a beautiful cover. 4 Dead Queens. The premise of this and the idea was incredible. This idea that there was a land that was separated into 4 different queendoms and they were all extremely loyal to their queendoms, but then the queens themselves had to come together to live in a central tower where they made the decisions for the rest of the world. I thought that was cool. So in that element, there is like a fantasy. I don't know, actually, what does Goodreads classify this as? Yeah, it does call it a fantasy. However, I would be more likely to just call it, there's not really any magic, it's just a kind of dystopian world where there's like a different way of ruling. It could even be like historical way of ruling, but anyway, that's besides the point. The thing with this book is, it wasn't the worst. I gave it 3 stars. That's not a bad rating. So why is it on this list? Because I hated the quick burn romance in this novel so much. This novel is basically meant to be us trying to figure out how the queens died, right? 4 Dead Queens is in the title. How did the queens die? That's what we're trying to figure out. Who did it? How did they get into the palace? Yada, yada, yada. And throughout it, there's woven this romance subplot, which is so frustrating because it came across as the female main character, Carolee, couldn't do her job without her male love interest, who, by the way, only came into the picture for the past, like the book itself, only encompasses maybe 24, 48 hours. It happens within the span of days. It is not long. And by the end of it, they're willing to sacrifice themselves for each other. Not it really annoys me. It just really annoys me. So whilst the premise of the book wasn't the worst, whilst the revelation was like, oh, I genuinely didn't see that coming, the actual romance undermined everything the main character did, and it frustrated me no end. So that's why 4 Dead Queens is on this list. Now, the next book I have is Conflict, and if you saw my reading vlog where I basically asked someone online in a secondhand shop to send me 3 random adult Mills and Boons books, and it was like a mystery box. That's when I read this, and I always thought Mills and Boons books were steamy, and I say steamy, I mean like Sarah J Maas steamy, I mean like ACOTAR steamy. I always thought Mills and Boons was like 5 chilies, 4 chilies. Basically, adult content in a book. That's why I thought Mills and Boons were, but these, and I mean, I might be wrong because these were older. I think these were all set in the 80s, like written in the 80s. These books in this reading challenge, mystery box, whatever you want to call it, were all so sexist. And this one in particular caused me to have a low-key mental breakdown. Like I was probably already destabilizing, and then I read that and I was like, this cannot be happening. And I completely, like, I dyed my hair. I went from bright blue to like my natural brown again. By the way, like this you can see my roots there. This is genuinely my natural color. And this book has been more useful to me as a craft tool. I wish I had a picture of it to show you. I've packed it away because it's in all my craft stuff. I ripped the cover off and framed it. And then the pages themselves I rip out and use in my journal as like aesthetic vintage pages because it's so old. The pages have like yellowed and stuff. So it's been more useful to me as a craft item than a book. Now, what really drove me no end with this book is that, okay, sometimes you can see a bit of sexism and you can recognize it's not okay, but it advances the plot because then the female character is like, F you, I'm gonna overcome this. But in this one, it seems like it's acceptable, like all of the Mills and Boons ones. But this one in particular, the author made it seem like it was acceptable and okay for a woman to be treated like that. And then when she did get angry, the dude only had to do the smallest thing to like get her to forgive him. Ugh, it just frustrated me. The next one that frustrated me was Hush, Hush. Now this one, I can't get over. I'm going from like why we need to empower women to why this female main character is so stupid. I can't get over how stupid the main character is. And I don't really like that word. I can't really come up with another word to replace it. But the idea is the male love interest has these scars on his shoulder blade, okay? If I said where wings were, that they'd been chopped off, right? And the whole time there's all this supernatural, freaky deaky stuff going on in terms of like the occult and the mystical and the unknown. And our main character sees the scars on the love interest so many times, but she just doesn't put two and two together. Plus, that aside, he is a right dick to her, and she's like, oh, he's so mean. But why am I so attracted to him? It's like, girl, boundaries. And if he's being a dick, he's a dick. It doesn't matter if he's an attractive dick, the word dick is still there. He's still an ass. Like, I think it incenses me more so now as a adult. I was going to say a young adult, I'm 25 now, but as a high school teacher, because I know young women are reading these novels, and I'm hoping so strongly that they're not reading these books and basically seeing, oh, like idolizing a main character because they get with a hot guy, and then not realizing how problematic said hot guy is. Hopefully that makes sense. So I think this book irritated me from the maternal instincts in me. I was like, oh no, that frustrated me. I'm trying like not to get too loud and irate because I know it's just gonna like bounce off the walls and be real echoey, but that's it just drives me up the walls. Breathe. Move on. I said to move on, and then I just looked at the next one I have on my list, Adultolescence by Gabby Hanna. Trash. Who the hell let this be published? Absolute trash. Who thought that this was worth the trees it was printed on? Who thought this was worth the ink used? Who thought it was worth the time of my time that I couldn't get back? This, like, I can understand why everyone would like, I think every other book on this list, even if it was problematic and they didn't see it, I'd be like, okay, you haven't learned to read things in that lens, or you just personally don't have that perspective on things, which is cool, fine, I never did either. But if you like this book, why? I don't want to come for you, but why? I think the best poem was maybe the first one, and after that it just, not poetry at all. It was inarticulatable garbage. I cannot describe how bad this is. It is straight up a cash grab that isn't worth anybody's time. So if you see this, if you're interested in this, don't waste your precious life, because this is not worth it. Okay. The next one I have on here, I think, is a not very well-known book, and that is Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. It's marketed as an adult fantasy, and it definitely should be an adult fantasy because there is rape and pillaging and so many other disastrous, horrible things going on in this novel. But the reason it's on this list is because it left the worst taste in my mouth after finishing it. The main character is extremely young. I read it like towards the beginning of the year. I think he was maybe 10, and then he grows up and reaches like maybe 16, maybe 18. All I remember is thinking, oh my gosh, this guy isn't even at high school yet. And he's going about partaking in the raping and pillaging. And that in itself was enough for me to get this book on this list. But then they had to go and ruin it even more by having just the most unexciting fantasy elements in any book I've read. Okay, I might be over exaggerating a little bit here. I might be, a bit hyperbolic, using hyperbole to make a point. But this just wasn't even, it did the bare minimum to be a fantasy novel. I feel like, I said I wasn't going to come for the authors, but maybe I am a little bit. I feel like Mark Lawrence just wanted to write a story about the power a young dude has over everybody else sexually, and then decided, oh, you know what, I can't really let my true thoughts show too much, so I'll just throw it into a fantasy world where he is plagued by ghosts. I don't give a damn if that child is plagued by ghosts. It's not an excuse. It's not okay to do what that kid was doing, and there was never any conversation around what he was doing was wrong. In fact, it was the opposite. What he was doing, and then subsequently that made him respected among his peers, who were men. Fully grown men followed this child rapist. He didn't rape children. He raped women, but he was a child. Followed him into battle. Oh, it's just really, the amount of times I'm doing this, it's really not okay. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. The next one, just talking about boring kind of stuff. Ash Princess. By the way, can we talk about how this book cover has become so popular in YA fantasy? Ever since Red Crown, which by the way, I really enjoyed, but then the rest of the series was really horrible. It just deteriorated so fast. But we're not here to talk about that. Ash Princess. What can I say except I have no recollection of this novel. That's why it's here. I have no memory whatsoever about what happens. I think there was some sort of revenge plot, some really subpar romance subplot. This book was immemorable and probably full of cliches, but I can't say anything because I don't remember anything about it. Even in my review, it doesn't help me jog my memory whatsoever. So, moving on, we have Again But Better by our dear beloved Christine over here on BookTube. If you don't know, she is a really big BookTuber, one of the biggest on this platform, and I love her. I used to watch her videos all the time. I always thought she was entertaining, but her book wasn't as entertaining. Okay, the premise. We have a bunch of university students, exchange students from around the world. They're in Britain and they're all studying, living their lives, and one day they decide to, go travel on the weekends, and they go traveling, they go to Italy and Rome and just explore places. And by the way, yes, I know Rome's in Italy. I just remember a scene where they went to the Colosseum, which is in Rome. I hope. So yeah, they're traveling, and then there's a romance subplot, right? Our main character starts to like a dude, but basically they don't work out. It doesn't work out for them. And then when they're in their adulthood, they see each other, they go in a lift, and the lift transports them back in time to when they were like traveling as university students to give them a second shot. Now, I was okay with the novel up until the lift point. I was like, this is cute. A little travel, a little romance, a little university student studying abroad moment. I'm here for that. But then we go in a lift which stops and then teleported us back in time. What the hell? I just really didn't see that coming. And then the second half of the book, like after that event, was basically repeating what we'd already seen, but like with different consequences. And I couldn't get over the fact that all of a sudden we were in a lift and the lift stops, and then we're not in the lift, we're in somewhere else, and I just couldn't get over that. So I think my biggest issue with this is, if you want there to be time travel in a novel, you need to make it believable. And that might sound hypocritical. How can you make something that's not real believable? Well, you do it so that throughout your world, you know, people might have disappeared, they might have time travel. I don't know. You can't throw it at me like that. Your gal is not here for that sort of randomness. It was quite jarring. Yeah, that's it. It was jarring. Then we come to the last one, and this might be a bit contentious because I know lots of people love Matt Haig, but it is The Midnight Library. There's a number of points against this book which led it to be on this list. But can I talk about something that not only this book is guilty for, but lots of books are guilty for? We need trigger warnings in books more often. We need them. This blurb has absolutely no allusion to the fact that this is about a woman who commits suicide, which is delved into in decent enough detail within the first 3, I think, pages. I opened this book thinking there was going to be a nighttime library and there was going to be a woman who has to deal with choices and consequences. No, I opened this book and she's killed herself. Where was the trigger warning? All I could think about when I read that part is, imagine if somebody with depression, with a habit or a history of self-harm, who's lost loved ones to suicide, picked this up and then read that. What the hell? And this isn't just Matt Haig. So many books need this. So that's my first strike against this, because it was so visceral of an experience for me reading it. And I'm not even, thankfully, I pray, thank you so much, whoever's in charge up there, that I have been blessed to never have experienced something like that myself or close to home. So that was the first big strike against it. And then after that, not saying I got over it, but you move on. The pages keep turning. The story itself is extremely repetitive and I hated it. Basically, our main character commits suicide. She goes into shall we say, an in-between world between life and death. She's like a ghost, a spirit of herself, where there's a library and you can pick books off the shelf, and it's like, oh, instead of going to Melbourne, Australia, I went to Hawaii, USA. And so then you see how their lives lived out differently. But the thing is, they weren't massively different trajectories from the point of choice. So it felt like you were reading the same couple of chapters over and over again, just with a different complaint or a slight different change, and I found it incredibly boring. And those are the two main reasons why this is on this list. Hopefully I haven't yarned and rambled on too much. If you agree with any of these or disagree and one of these books has been your favourite of the year 2021, please let me know in the comments. I'm always down for those conversations. And thank you very much for making it to the end of this video. If you liked it and want to stay on for more content this year, or will it be next year by the time this is posted? Who knows? Not me right now. My life is a little bit of a mess. Please consider leaving a cheeky like and subscribe down below to help a small booktuber out. I highly, highly appreciate it. And enjoy all the places you go in your own reading adventures. I will see you in the next one, guys. Bye.